I feel like I might end up looking like a big pumpkin. Hopefully not, ideally not. We'll find out together. Hi, my name's Mark and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm sitting down to show you the start of a beautiful project that I'm making out of really beautiful yarn. The weather is starting to turn a bit cooler here in northeastern Ohio, so I'm excited about my fall and winter wardrobe. I'm excited to be knitting things that I'll get to wear really soon. Today's theme is apparently orange between Gus, the sweater, and the yarn, so stick around to talk about cables, local yarn, the start of new projects, and maybe even some surprises along the way. Let's get into it. While I have Gus here being so incredibly polite in my arms, I thought I would share a quick update on the animals of our household. If you've been here on the channel with me for a while, then you've seen all of our animals, Big Cat, Gus, Scout, and then Mabel, our Corgi puppy. And one update that I haven't shared yet is that earlier this year, we lost Big Cat. He was an elderly cat. He was about 20 years old by our estimation. Such a sweet cat, such a good boy, and he had been declining for a while. And it was a hard decision and hard to let him go. But back in April or May of this year, he was put down, and that's that. So a couple people asked privately recently if Big Cat was okay, if he had passed on because they hadn't seen him or heard about him. So I wanted to give the update because I know there are a lot of you out there who watch this channel who are wonderful animal lovers. You have great pets of your own. You share stories and pictures about them with me. And of course, you get to hear about these lovely, wonderful little animals that we love and take care of here on the channel. So I wanted to give that update that unfortunately Big Cat is not with us anymore. But we know that he's at peace now. He had really declined, and I think his final year of life was less than. It wasn't a great quality of life, and it was hard to tell when those shifts took place. It's hard when you're with a person or a pet or something in your life, someone in your life. When you see them every day, it's hard to gauge those shifts and exactly how severe a situation has become. So a couple pictures, a couple little clips of Big Cat in his memory and his honor. Such a good boy, and he was my first pet that I had as an adult. And he was with me for 10 plus years. He saw me through a lot of change, a lot of growth in my life, and he was always such a sweet, loving, attentive companion. So he is greatly missed, but we're So grateful, of course, to have sweet animals like Gus here. Little Scout, even though he's very shy, he's a great cat as well. And then Mabel, who is lively and funny, and we love seeing her personality grow. So that's a quick update for those of you out there who I know care just as much about these animals as we do. So I'll wipe my tears off and we'll move on to some project talk. Right, Gus? All right. Thanks for listening to that. And for those of you who are those big animal lovers and you always send your love to our four-legged friends, thanks for being there and for sending all of that love. And if you're not an animal person, if you've never met me before and you're like, what's going on? Thanks for your patience letting me share that. So today I bring you the start of a new project. In front of me, I have the beginning of a sweater vest, and I am really enjoying this. I'm really excited about this, mostly because it screams fall. It screams autumn to me. So let's talk a bit about the pattern and a bit about the yarn. We're here on Ravelry and we'll take a look at this pattern. This pattern is called Oban, O-B-A-N, named after a town in Scotland. And I saw signs for this town. I didn't know my geography well enough. I didn't know that this was a town in Scotland, but I saw signs for it last year when I was traveling through Scotland with my family, and we were on a train to Fort William. And on that path, we saw signs and directions to get to Oban. And I thought, oh, I've heard of that because of this pattern. This is a pattern by Thea Colman, and there are a few different variations of it at this point in time. Initially, I knew this project as a vest, a traditional pullover vest. So here is that listing. This is for worsted weight yarn, and I love the look of it. I like the ropey sort of cables. I like that in between the cables we get additional texture from some of this garter stitch. I also like the sort of open rolled neckline. So a couple of years ago, before I took this trip to Scotland, I considered making this project. And in hindsight, it would have been a nice project to work on because it's named after a Scottish town. Not a town that I visited, but I was in that part of the country. The reason I ended up not making this sweater is because I just wasn't sure if the sort of slouchy drop shoulder look was for me. I also didn't know how much I would have to do to adapt the neckline. Oftentimes when I'm making my sweaters, because I'm making sort of a 2X or a 3X in the sizing, the neck openings are dramatically larger than the mediums or the smalls. Not in every case, but oftentimes patterns are graded by a designer, and that's what I'm left with. And so when I finish my project and put on my sweater, I have an extremely large, sometimes gaping neckline, which leaves me pulling at a sweater all day. So I've made adaptations for a lot of the sweaters I make to prevent that from happening. So I wasn't sure how this would scale out to my size, and I didn't know if I loved or was sold on the drop shoulder element. But I definitely love the look of this pattern. I like the cables, I like the aesthetic, I like Thea Colman. I've made other patterns from her. I think they're well written. I think her cables and textures are inventive without being far-fetched or ridiculous. So I'm a big fan. So that was my history with this pattern. I did not end up making the pullover, and recently, when I was considering working with the yarn that I have for this project, I wanted some sort of textured, ideally cabled vest. Something that I could wear even in the summer or the cooler parts of summer because I work in a yarn shop. I like to wear my knitwear, especially when I'm working at my local shop, because I feel like it's a good sort of uniform to have. It's nice because I make most of my projects out of yarn that is sold at that shop. If someone comes into shop, they might ask me about the yarn, the color, the pattern, the designer. It's a good talking point. So I always like to make sure I have things that I can wear comfortably, which includes a lot of vests. So that brings me to the vest version of the Oban sweater. So when I was doing this search for cabled projects and textured projects, I saw not only the Oban sweater, but an Oban cardigan and an Oban vest. And it looks like there's also a hat. So the cardigan version, just to have a peek, we get the same cables, a shawl collar, which if you saw a video I posted a couple weeks ago, I used to be really drawn in by shawl collars, so that would have gotten me. It's nice. It's not a cardigan that I need in my wardrobe, but in case you're looking, in case you like these cables, there is a cardigan version. But what I was excited about is this vest version. Still working out of worsted weight. We still get those cables, but we get a different silhouette. We don't have the drop shoulder. Nothing is hanging down past the natural shoulder. We also get a little V-neck. And one of my favorite things about this is that the neck has the cable. The cable pattern continues up around the neck. And I think Thea Colman often does this. She will have her cables emerge from the ribbing at the start of a project, and then the detail around the neck, if it's possible to use that cabling, or in a cardigan, have it come up, travel around the shawl collar so it meets behind the neck. I think that's really cool. It's a nice detail. So you see it here around the neck. We get that cable, comes all the way to the back where it is grafted or seamed together. So I thought this is the answer. It's not the sweater version, but I still get the ropey cables in the scale of a garment, the drape, the fit of a garment that I might be able to wear even more often. So that's the start. That's the choice for the project, which then left me to select the right yarn. The yarn that I've chosen for this project comes from Cat of Why Not Fibers in Traverse City, Michigan. And we'll talk specifically about this yarn, its fiber content, the color, and then we'll look at the project as it's worked up so far. Before that, I wanted to talk about a project I've taken up recently through Skillshare. A new project that I've wanted to try for some time now is natural dyeing. So I have a couple of undyed skeins of yarn in front of me. These are a blend of 50% wool, 50% tencel, and they're in a fingering weight. So with the help of today's sponsor, Skillshare, I'm digging into the start of this natural dyeing project. The class I'm taking is called Natural Dyeing, Dye Multicolored Yarn with Natural Colors, taught by Casey Gallagher Newman. In the class, Casey takes us through everything needed to dye yarn naturally. There are all sorts of steps and supplies involved, everything from prepping the fiber to dyeing it and then setting the color afterwards. And she shows us several options for the dyeing, everything from flowers to bugs. So I'm choosing to collect onion skins to try to dye my undyed fiber. What's special about this course is that you're not just dyeing the fiber a different color, you're using all sorts of shades to create multicolors and speckles. Yarn that's really vibrant and really unique. One thing I've grown to love about these Skillshare classes is the huge variety and the expertise of the teachers. There are classes in categories like art and illustration, design, photography, and of course, fiber arts. The first 500 people to use my link in the description box or to scan the QR code on screen will receive a 1-month free trial to Skillshare. So if you're interested in joining me there, learning from all of the great teachers and the huge range of categories, then get started today. All right, so let's talk about the yarn I've chosen for this project. This comes from Why Not Fibers in Traverse City. This specific yarn comes from the line Social, and this was a collaboration with Why Not Fibers and Around the Table Yarns in Shaker Heights, Ohio, where I work locally. So this fiber is a custom blend for Around the Table yarns. We get 250 yards and 100 grams of DK weight wool, and the fiber content is 70% polypay targi and 30% alpaca. It's soft, it's squishy, it's really springy. There are so many people I meet who say they have an aversion to wool. Some people, I think, truly can't wear wool. They can't have it on their skin. But there are a lot of people out there who have not tried it or maybe have not felt a variety of wool, of different breeds, of different blends, of different processing and spin. So this is really soft. It's a really nice, smooth, squishy, bouncy fiber. So let's take a closer look at it and then look at how it's working up in the project. And a very important thing I forgot to say is the color. This is colorway Acorn. I think it's a really beautiful orangey copper. It's not bright orange. I don't know what I would say to translate it. I'm not great at describing color. I think this is really beautiful. And There are questions about how it will behave next to my skin, not the feel, but the color next to my skin. And I'll say, in choosing this fiber and choosing this color, this is a vest. It will always be worn over some sort of shirt, like the shirt I'm wearing now. This vest, you can see, doesn't go directly against my skin. So the color, when I consider choosing the color, I'm also considering what I'm going to wear it over. And I often wear navy shirts, and so I think this color is going to look really spectacular on top of any of my navy shirts. For anyone worried about how it might look against my skin, that's a note for you. So let's take a look. All right, this is, again, really soft, I think pretty bouncy, pretty springy. It's also really lightweight, which is something I notice with a lot of hand spun or sort of farm to needle local yarns. They're not dense and heavy. They feel almost like nothing, which I think is nice when I'm making a garment that I want to wear year round. It's not going to feel heavy. It's going to really breathe. It's got all of that air, all of that bounce and squish that I think it's going to help me regulate my temperature really well, which is one thing wool does. It helps keep you cool as well as helping to keep you warm. It also helps wick moisture. So I think that's some of the magic of wool, some of the reasons I love it. And I will say, I get comments sometimes when I'm talking about wool, when I'm going on these rants, that people say they're very turned off that I talk about wool so much. And I don't know why that would be. I use a pretty large range of fiber types. I don't come in judging what fiber other people choose to use. I'm not only using one thing here. I'm not looking down or up at anyone for their choices. So I think, I don't know. It takes me by surprise that anybody would say they feel uncomfortable hearing me talk about wool or hearing me talk about alpaca or any of the things I'm using for my projects, because I would not be shocked or judgy to hear you talk about whatever your choice is. So I just want to throw that out there. I know that natural fibers are not for everyone. I know that some people don't have good access to a local shop where they can consider and feel and evaluate these fibers. So this is not an announcement that everyone has to use what I'm using or do what I'm doing, but more an announcement to remind you that I am completely open to anything. I don't come into this space with judgment. So I hope hearing me talk all about wool for this episode will not put any of you off. So let's look at how it's knitting up. This is a 2-ply, a really pretty 2-ply, and I was reading on Kat's blog through the Why Not Fibers website that she likes a 2-ply. She's really drawn to it, and so she chooses it for several of the bases that she then dyes. One reason I'm so drawn to wool and I love to use it is because of the memory it has, the structure and the memory. When you see me pull on this strand and it straightens out a bit and then I release it, it puffs back up into a really beautiful, squishy, plush fiber. And the same thing happens when I knit. As soon as this gets wound into a skein or into a cake, it's got that tension on it. And then as I knit my stitches and they're then released onto the needle and then released into their final form in the fabric, again, they puff up, they go back to their natural happy state. And when the whole thing gets a bath, when it gets blocked, it happens again to a further degree, that everything absorbs that water, it gets saturated, just like hair, human hair. This is an animal hair. It goes back to its natural state. So it gets any of that coil, that bounce, that moisture back into the fiber, and it helps settle the project. It helps settle the stitches. It blooms. It really sets in a beautiful way. And then that memory is also going to help the garment you've made. It will help you block it to the exact measurements you want or the exact sort of shaping and drape. And then you can come back to it with wear, with agitation, with saturation from rain or water or washing. it can come back to its original form over and over and over again, which I think is really incredible. This kind of fiber has such a great life, such resilience, so many really special qualities that make it, I think, incredible to work with. It's incredible in the hands, incredible with every stitch, and then even more incredible to wear. Speaking of incredible, let's take a look at these cables. I think they're really fun, really special. We get some normal sort of 2x2 cables for the main ropiness of the front and back of the sweater vest. But then we also get a little bit of honeycomb action, which I love. It's one of my favorite types of cables. And then a cable that I've never worked before. This little fellow, which from a distance and at first glance looks a lot like the little honeycomb, but if you compare them, you'll see they're different. This one here in the middle is interesting. I had not done this cable before. It consists of 3 stitches of bringing a strand of yarn over the others, dropping it off, knitting one, yarning over, and knitting another. So we actually get a little hole, a little opening in the middle of it, which I don't know if that hole will remain. I think even now, before it's blocked, we don't really see anything behind it because the cable stands up so much and this fiber fills in. It again is plush and squishy, and so we lose that opening we've created. I think it's really lovely so far. I like the color. I feel like I might end up looking like a big pumpkin. Hopefully not, ideally not. We'll find out together. But I like it. I like how cabled, how ropey it is. And so far I'm a big fan of this color and a really big fan of working with such a special, earthy, local fiber. It makes me happy. It makes me feel like I'm connecting to more history of this craft and definitely connecting to my community, to the people in my area, to the animals in my area, and the industry, the textile industry of where I live. I realized in my start of this project that I don't actually have many cabled projects. I'm a big fan of cables. I think some of the cabled things I've knit have been gifts, so they're not here. They're not in my wardrobe. They're not things that I really get to enjoy. So on my list is to work a few more cabled garments to fill up my wardrobe. So this will be the start with this vest. You'll see here I'm cabling, and I really prefer to cable without a cable needle. These cables are all very standard. I'm not doing any extended techniques that would require really a cable needle to hold anything. So let's just take a look in case you're curious to see what I do. I've got 4 stitches here, and I need these first 2 stitches to come forward. So to achieve that, I'm going to reach behind them and pick up the next 2 stitches on the needle. Then I'm going to drop off the first 2 stitches while squeezing the fabric underneath them, which makes sure that they're not going to go anywhere, they're not going to drop down. And then I'll just slide my needle through them. And now you can see I'm cabling the fabric over. I put the 3rd and 4th stitch back on the needle, and then I'll knit them all. You may look at that and think that's slower than what you would do with a cable needle, and if so, then you're already speedy, you don't need it. But for me, I just prefer to do my cables this way. Here the cable is traveling the other direction, so I need stitches 3 and 4 to come forward. So I'll reach across into both of them, squeeze the fabric, slide it off, pick up the first 2 stitches, and then replace stitches 3 and 4. Then I'm ready to knit all 4 of those. And there we have the top of our cable. And here we go again, just in case you want to see exactly what's happening. So the first 2 stitches need to come forward. I'm going to reach behind them, picking up stitches 3 and 4, squeezing the fabric and sliding 1 and 2 off, putting them on the needle, and then replacing the other 2 stitches. Now I've got them in the right arrangement, so I'm ready to knit all 4 stitches. And there we have it cabled at the top. And for our cable that is twisting the other direction, I'll reach across grabbing stitches 3 and 4, squeeze the fabric, and rearrange those stitches. Then I can knit them. There's not a lot that I need to say about that. It's just my preference. I like to work without a cable needle if I can because I don't have to worry about where it is. I don't have to worry about the tool, dropping it, losing it in my armchair, losing it on the airplane, etc. As I'm knitting away here, I'll say that the reason it feels important to me to work with this fiber and buy something local is because it's hit me that in my travels, when I see these extremely famous yarn brands and manufacturers that represent very famous breeds of sheep, that's what so many people like to use. They either buy these things online from local stockists who supply them, or they take trips, sort of yarn specific trips to buy the fiber to be able to work, with Shetland wool, or pick up something from Iceland and use Lopi. And I think that's really beautiful and a wonderful tradition, a wonderful way to experience fiber from around the world and connect with the histories of those crafts and the histories of the communities, the cultures themselves. So when I look at the landscape of what's around me, where I live in the United States, there are sheep. There are plenty of people with sheep and alpaca and goats. And then there are people that I meet, like Kat from Why Not Fibers, who make it a mission to create yarn, create colors and blends and different bases using what surrounds her. So the fiber that she is using, that she's dyeing, is local. It's not being purchased online from a larger market and then just being dyed in her studio. She's going out to farms and she is meeting farmers, looking at different breeds of sheep, different blends or hybrids of these animals and the wool, and then figuring out, working with mills, again, local mills, what can be put together to create, the ideal fiber that she would want to put out into the world. So I just think it's incredible. It's a huge undertaking, and it's not always something that is that profitable or gives you, much benefit or gratification. But I think it's important. I think how wonderful that somebody is able to look at what their community offers and then work with those other gifted community members, gifted in their own respective parts of the production, to create really special, top-notch fiber. And in some cases, you'll see that on a huge scale with very large, successful companies that everyone hears about. They're everywhere. They're doing the same thing. They want to work with the local sheep, the local farms, farmers, and mills to help sustain this art, this tradition, this culture. And you'll see it on smaller scales. You might know someone in your area who does this on a very small scale. They may have their own sheep and they may do the shearing or have someone come in to shear. They might process all of that fiber. They could be spinning it by hand or having it milled and then dyeing it or not dyeing it and putting out undyed natural fibers. So it can be happening on any scale, but it's often taking place somewhere around you. So I encourage you, if you've connected with anything I've said here about this history, about sinking into the history, the culture of this art, of crafting, of handcrafts, of fiber, of wool, I encourage you to check out what's going on in your community, if you haven't already, to see who has sheep, where does that fiber go? Is there someone hand spinning or hand dyeing or milling anything in your region? Because I just think it's important. It's important, powerful work. I think this is beautiful so far, and this makes me happy. I like to invest in these projects, and I often talk about how crafting keeps people sane, keeps people happy. It is absolutely true for me. And lately, I found myself frustrated with obviously things going on, big things going on around the world, things going on that are out of your control, or they feel like they are absolutely out of your control. And then on a much smaller scale, I've been frustrated by little things that only affect me in my tiny little bubble. So these projects, the reason I sit and work on them so much and talk about them and have all of these opinions and all this passion about it is because of what it does for me, the purpose it serves, the way it glues my life together and keeps me functioning. And that may be true for a lot of you watching. So I am so grateful that there's a community, a good community of people who care about fiber arts, about their stitches, whatever stitches those might be. So I'm really, really grateful that you are contributing to the good in the world. You're contributing to making the future for those around you and those to come a better place. So thank you, a big thank you to all of you for that. I've got a lot of knitting left on this. Right now I'm working bottom up, so I need to get to the underarm point where I will then separate for the front and back panels. I'll do some shaping for the armholes, keep working those cables, and then we'll get to the V-neck. And by the time all of that happens, I'll make sure to track the progress of this, come back on the camera and back on the channel and show you how it all turns out. So I appreciate you being here. I really appreciate the patience you have to sit and listen to anything that comes out of my mouth, because I think that's wild that anybody would, but it means the world. I'm so lucky to have you all as friends, as people in my life, people who, as I said, are contributing so much good to this community. So go out there, find out what's going on in your community, go to your local shop, go craft with the people around you. If there aren't people around you crafting, start something. Morgan in France sent me a letter once saying that she wasn't aware of any sort of crafting group that took place in her town. So she put a post in the newspaper, in the newsletter that goes out, saying that she wanted to start a crafting group, and she had a great turnout. And now there are people that she crafts with that she didn't think were there. So go out, invest in those communities, figure out if you've got any sheep or alpaca or goats hanging out in your area and what's happening with that fiber. Because I think it's an interesting story, an interesting tale to see what's being created all around us. As always, I'm very grateful that you choose to be here with me. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry at MakerMarkKnits. You can find me here on YouTube every week. I show up on Saturdays and I try to be very consistent with that. So if you're not already subscribed, I would love for you to do that and be here for future videos. Happy knitting, happy crocheting, happy crafting to you, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye.